You notice her eyes shift when you enter a room, subtle, almost imperceptible, yet undeniable. There is a pull, a silent magnetism she cannot name, because her mind is already chasing what it does not fully understand. Most men mistake attraction for attention, for pursuit, for frantic gestures that signal desperation. But you are not most men. You understand that obsession does not arise from effort. It arises from presence, from the deliberate control of your own emotional world. A woman becomes captivated not because you speak loudly, but because your silence carries weight, your gaze holds depth, and your behavior resonates with an invisible authority that she instinctively registers. She notices the steadiness in your voice when chaos flutters around her. She feels it in the way you inhabit space without demanding recognition, the way your hands rest, your posture aligns with gravity, your calmness refuses to be perturbed. Stoics long ago understood this principle. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man must be like a rock amidst waves, untouched by their frenzy, commanding by nature of his composure alone. You embody this, and she feels the unspoken power. Her mind begins to puzzle over you, to chase the patterns she cannot predict, to weave stories in her head where you are always central, yet unattainable. The first emotional trigger is mystery. Mystery is not manipulation. It is the deliberate withholding of complete accessibility. You do not disclose everything. You do not exhaust your thoughts, your stories, or your presence in a single encounter. By doing so, you invite her curiosity to engage, to extend beyond the physical, to invest mentally, to explore the labyrinth of your mind. Her brain releases dopamine in the pursuit, pleasure encoded into the act of wondering about you. And this is why women do not simply forget men who remain enigmatic. Ordinary men flood their presence, exhausting attention. You, however, conserve it, shaping desire without effort. The second trigger is emotional resonance. She is drawn to you because you reflect back her unspoken emotions with clarity and understanding, without being ensnared by them. When she expresses fear, frustration, or joy, you do not flinch, overreact, or beg for validation. Instead, you acknowledge subtly, you mirror calmly, and you hold your own emotional center intact. This is the invisible signal of masculine strength. She senses that your value is inherent, independent of her approval, and she cannot help but respect it. Women are neurologically wired to detect stability in a partner. Unpredictability creates anxiety, while composure breeds attachment. Your presence becomes a refuge you cannot rationally articulate. The third trigger is the strategic challenge, the delicate balance between availability and restraint. You do not chase. You do not bend to the whims of her attention. You allow her to invest, to lean, to reevaluate, because scarcity activates the primitive reward circuits in her brain. But it is not scarcity for its own sake. It is scarcity grounded in authenticity. You remain selective not to manipulate, but to reflect your own high self-worth. In this dynamic, she experiences a subtle tension, a magnetic pull, the sensation that something essential is always slightly out of reach. She is compelled to pursue, to probe, to think, to feel, because your inner discipline has created a space she instinctively craves. Even in silence, your fourth trigger exerts influence, controlled vulnerability. You reveal fragments of your inner world, not in desperation, but with calculated authenticity. Your emotions, when expressed, are tempered by self-command. This is the paradoxical effect. By demonstrating mastery over yourself, you invite her to connect at a deeper emotional level. She senses the layers beneath your exterior, the weight of your thoughts, the integrity of your choices. This layered presence evokes fascination. It triggers subconscious admiration and curiosity that grows with each subtle disclosure. Ordinary men either hide completely or overshare recklessly. You navigate the tension with artful precision. The fifth trigger is emotional highs anchored to your presence. Shared experiences, laughter, moments of tension, or meaningful conversation imprint themselves neurologically. Your composure amplifies these moments. embedding your presence into her emotional memory. Women remember not just actions, but the feelings those actions create. By engineering experiences where calmness, strength, and authenticity are paired with positive emotional resonance, you anchor her desire and curiosity. She begins to associate the subtle highs she experiences with you, building a subconscious attachment that ordinary interactions cannot replicate. Finally, the sixth trigger is the silent command of attention through consistency. You are steady in your routines, reliable in your principles, unwavering in your values. She senses this rhythm, this predictability in the right places, the certainty that your identity is self-contained. Women do not consciously articulate it, yet the subconscious registers strength, stability, and leadership. Your life is not defined by her response, yet her mind orients around your presence. Obsession emerges not from frantic pursuit, but from the profound certainty that she has encountered a man who moves through life with purpose, presence, and disciplined clarity. These six triggers, mystery, emotional resonance, strategic challenge, controlled vulnerability, emotional anchoring, and silent command, form the architecture of irresistible presence. They are not tricks. They are reflections of mastery over self, over perception, over emotional gravity. And as you begin to integrate them, you notice a shift. Women do not merely notice you. They think about you. They anticipate you. They reevaluate their own desire in relation to your steady, magnetic presence. This is the alchemy of attraction, the fusion of stoic composure with behavioral psychology, the quiet force that leaves ordinary men in confusion while the rare man observes with knowing calm. And yet, mastery is more than knowledge. It is the living embodiment of these principles. The way your gaze carries depth, your silence carries weight, your actions carry meaning. She does not analyze consciously. She experiences subconsciously. And as her mind and emotions engage with the architecture of your presence, a profound loop forms. Curiosity leads to emotional engagement, which leads to desire, which loops back to respect and attachment. She becomes quietly, inevitably, drawn to the man who understands himself before seeking to understand her. She is observing more than you realize. Every pause, every deliberate gesture, and every word unsaid etches itself into her subconscious. You exist as a force in her perception, quiet yet undeniable, and the more she tries to comprehend you, the more layers she uncovers, each one resonating with a hidden rhythm that she cannot name. The rare man understands this. Presence is not performative. It is the embodiment of principle, and principle is invisible yet unavoidable. She feels it before she thinks it, and that emotional priming is the foundation of every obsession. The architecture of curiosity thrives on gradual revelation. Mystery does not collapse under scrutiny if managed with precision. You let her glimpse a facet of your mind here, a hint of depth there, never the totality. A thought shared, a subtle passion disclosed, or a quiet laugh at an inside insight triggers a cascade of mental patterns. She begins to anticipate, to puzzle, to interpret. She imagines, she replays, she rehearses scenarios in which you appear central. Your restraint is the invisible magnet, your selective disclosure, the lever that activates her cognitive reward circuits. Every man floods her attention. You structure it. Emotional resonance is a language beyond words. You do not seek to please, yet your comprehension of her unspoken moods communicates volumes. When she experiences anxiety, frustration, or fleeting doubt, your calm acknowledgement, a slight nod, a quiet alignment with her emotional wavelength, signals authority and empathy simultaneously. She senses competence in your mind, but also competence in your emotional regulation. This duality fascinates her. A man capable of navigating his inner world with precision is rare, and rarity always breeds pursuit. Ordinary men react, you observe and anchor. The strategic challenge manifests in your selective engagement. Attention is a currency, not a commodity to be squandered. You allow her to invest without diminishing your autonomy. She feels a subtle tension, a flicker of doubt, a question unanswered, an invitation implied, but not fulfilled. In this tension, her mind becomes active, reconstructing possibilities, analyzing your behavior, and in doing so, she inadvertently reinforces her emotional attachment. You do not play games. You simply move with clarity, leaving gaps where curiosity blooms. In her pursuit, she experiences autonomy, and paradoxically, it deepens her dependency on your presence. Controlled vulnerability is not weakness. It is an engine of fascination. You reveal your inner world with precision, a reflection, a conviction, a philosophical insight, a fleeting passion, all tempered by composure. This signals authenticity, a rare and magnetic trait. She detects the difference between an insecure confession and a deliberate insight. Each subtle revelation is a thread that entwines her subconscious with yours. She cannot articulate it, yet she finds herself thinking about the fragments you allow her to see. This is the architecture of attachment, not through coercion, but through the meticulous orchestration of transparency. Emotional anchoring is your theater of subtle highs. You create moments, brief, intense, and memorable, where your presence is inseparable from sensation. A laugh shared over a clever observation, a tension-diffusing smile during a charged conversation, or a silent acknowledgement at the exact instant she seeks validation embeds a neurological pattern. Her brain encodes you as a source of emotional elevation, a signal of security, curiosity, and engagement. This is not manipulation. It is the natural consequence of disciplined presence and emotional clarity. Ordinary men provide stimuli haphazardly. You engineer resonance with intention. The silent command of attention is rooted in consistency. Your daily patterns, the measured rhythm of your routines, and the unwavering adherence to your principles create a gravitational pull she cannot consciously resist. She notices patterns, subconscious cues, and minute consistencies that signal reliability, stability, and leadership. This is not a superficial attraction. It is cognitive respect crystallized into emotional investment. She does not simply like you. She maps her world around your predictability and composure. She learns that the rare man does not bend to whims or external validation. He moves with purpose, leaving her admiration and curiosity as the natural byproduct. In practice, these triggers interact dynamically. Mystery allows emotional resonance to deepen. Controlled vulnerability amplifies anchoring. Strategic challenge heightens curiosity. Together, they create a psychological ecosystem in which her mind cycles through anticipation, evaluation, and desire. Each interaction with you reinforces the loop, subtly conditioning her perception. She associates your presence with calm, competence, and layered emotional richness. She does not just notice. She reflects, she imagines. She unconsciously prioritizes your attention. The transformation you evoke is subtle but profound. She experiences attraction not as a superficial response to gestures or words, but as an engagement with your inner architecture. Your composed reactions, measured disclosures, and deliberate rhythms form an invisible scaffolding around which her mind organizes desire. Ordinary men offer attention and receive fleeting interest. You construct a presence that draws her in, compelling reflection and emotional investment. She cannot articulate why she is captivated, only that she is. And in this, you observe the ultimate Stoic paradox: control not through force, but through mastery of self, a principle that commands respect, attention, and attachment without coercion. Every action, every absence, every smile, every pause becomes a psychological vector. You do not chase. You do not perform. You exist, measured, deliberate, and aware. And in doing so, she experiences an internal gravitational pull she cannot resist. Her curiosity becomes obsession. Her emotional investment solidifies. Her perception of desire becomes anchored in your mastery. This is the silent command few men ever understand, yet it is visible to all who can perceive truth. Attraction is not the result of effort, but the product of inner alignment, clarity of purpose, and unwavering presence. By this point, you begin to see a pattern. Attraction is a mirror of your internal state. Her obsession is not manufactured. It is a reflection of your command over your own mind, your emotional regulation, and your embodiment of disciplined masculinity. You do not merely influence. You catalyze transformation in how she perceives connection, desire, and value. And as she navigates these triggers, you watch quietly, knowing that the architecture of her attachment is inseparable from your mastery over self. This is the hidden, profound alchemy that ordinary men mistake for luck or charisma, yet it is entirely intentional, entirely grounded, and entirely yours to command. There comes a moment when you finally realize the truth. She is not responding to what you do, she is responding to what you are. And as this understanding settles into your mind, something inside you sharpens. You begin to see the architecture of attraction as a living system, fluid, responsive, and entirely shaped by the discipline of your internal world. The more you stabilize yourself, the more destabilizing you become to her assumptions about men. The more you refine your presence, the more she feels herself pulled toward you in ways she cannot justify. You become the quiet contradiction that her instincts cannot dismiss. Her fascination intensifies when she recognizes a pattern that challenges her worldview. You are not moved by the same impulses that govern other men. You do not chase validation, nor do you collapse under emotional pressure. When she withdraws, you do not panic. When she tests, you remain centered. When she tries to provoke a reaction, you choose silence over spectacle. This confounds her expectations and triggers the ancient instinct she rarely acknowledges, the desire to understand. A man who remains unmoved by the storms of emotion that sway lesser minds. She does not consciously seek your approval. She seeks alignment with your steadiness. Your emotional stillness becomes the mirror that exposes her own turbulence. She notices how easily her emotions fluctuate, how quickly her thoughts spiral, how deeply she feels uncertainty, and yet, every time she interacts with you, she encounters an anchor. You don't argue. You don't justify. You don't scramble to soothe insecurity. You simply respond with a composed clarity that communicates more than any explanation. In your presence, she understands her own emotional patterns with greater precision. In your distance, she evaluates herself with greater honesty. You become the catalyst for her internal recalibration, a role you never asked for but naturally embody. Your restraint becomes a language of its own. You say less, but every word carries weight. You reveal little, yet everything you choose to disclose feels intentional. She learns to pay attention to subtleties, the shifts in your expression, the measured tone in your voice, the way you stand, the way you disengage without hostility, the quiet decisiveness that permeates your choices. She realizes you are not withholding to manipulate. You are simply disciplined in your expression. This creates a powerful contrast. While others flood her senses with noise, you speak through precision and presence. And in this contrast, she finds depth. Attraction evolves into evaluation. Evaluation becomes respect. Respect becomes longing. Longing becomes the compulsion to stay connected to the source of her emotional elevation. You become the standard against which she subconsciously compares other men. It is not intentional. It is instinctual. Women do not obsess over perfection. They obsess over coherence, consistency, and the emotional imprint a man leaves on their subconscious mind. And you, through your disciplined composure, have created an imprint that grows stronger with every interaction, every silence, every moment in which you remain sovereign over your own emotions. The deeper she reflects, the more she senses an unfamiliar internal shift, a humility that draws her closer instead of pushing her away. She feels herself growing not because you demand it, but because your presence embodies a form of strength that invites her to elevate. She becomes more intentional with her words, more attentive with her emotions, more careful with her tone. She softens not out of weakness, but out of alignment with the energy you carry. You do not dominate her. You inspire refinement. And refinement, for a woman, is the most powerful form of attraction. A desire to rise to meet the man who challenges her simply by existing clearly. Your absence becomes a force equal to your presence. When you pull back, she feels it viscerally, not as abandonment, but as a recalibration of her emotional attachment. She wonders what you're thinking, what you're doing, whether you're affected, whether you've noticed her silence. This uncertainty does not diminish you in her mind. It heightens your value. You occupy a psychological space she cannot easily fill with distraction. The world feels slightly off-center without your energy grounding it. And in that space, she realizes something she never admits aloud. She has begun to measure her emotional equilibrium by your rhythm. The transformation occurs quietly. You do nothing different, yet she begins to behave differently. She reaches out more gently, speaks with more intention, listens more carefully. She becomes less reactive, more curious. She studies your principles, your discipline, your conviction, hoping to understand the internal engine that drives you. And as she does, she discovers that her attraction is no longer rooted in desire alone. It is rooted in admiration. This is the deepest form of connection, when attraction becomes respect, and respect becomes emotional loyalty. But this loyalty is not demanded. It is earned through the simple, uncompromising truth of how you live. You are not performing a role. You are not following a script. You are embodying alignment, thinking with clarity, acting with intention, and moving with a purpose that does not waver for anyone. She senses the gravity of this and feels herself pulled into your orbit, not as someone conquered, but as someone choosing to stay in the presence of a man whose spirit enhances hers. In the end, the secret is simple. You become unforgettable when you become immovable. You become magnetic when you become disciplined. You become desired when you become sovereign over yourself. Every psychological trigger, every emotional response, every instinctual pull she feels originates from one timeless truth. A truth the Stoics understood. A truth every great man eventually realizes. A woman's obsession is not captured by your pursuit of her, but awakened by your mastery of yourself. And when you embody this mastery, consistently, calmly, without seeking applause, you do not chase attraction. You create it. You do not demand loyalty, you inspire it. You do not force desire, you become it. This is the quiet power that reshapes her emotions, her expectations, and her understanding of what a man can be. The presence that commands without imposing, leads without controlling, and transforms without intention. This is the path of the rare man, the man she cannot forget, cannot replace, and cannot stop trying to understand. For in mastering yourself, you awaken something primal in her, something loyal, something curious, something deeply, almost painfully alive, a power she feels long after your words fade, long after your presence leaves the room, long after she closes her eyes and still sees you there.